Alright, time to end
Plains
this.
of Gorgoroth, lit by the endless fires of Mount Doom. Of all the Dark Lord's dominion, this is its very heart.
Good place to put a blade.
Indeed. But you will likely need help in this wretched land. Look for allies within it. And beneath.
Basically, in this region you will have one more person to recruit. But before doing that, let's finish off the other remaining optional captains while we're at it.
You know, I don't think we ever see deer in this universe. Where do those horns come from?
The palks, you mean?
God.
To be fair, there are still beasts that we do not see, like the big ones that actually, you know, pull ground in the movie, one that resemble more cows or bulls, you know. So it's easy to assume that there are other beasts to potentially scatter around. Not to mention, some of these orcs still travels around. We have seen some orcs which have looted dwarvish equipment.
Oh, of course. I'm just wondering specifically which animal that comes from. But you do have a point that there's a lot of animals we have not seen in the Jacksonverse.
It's one of those special disbelief that, you know, it's easy to assume it's somewhere there, and the game is not showing it for sake of convenience.
If you want, Jova, like we can use a logic from my country, because in my country we usually have this thing where when someone cheats on their partner, that partner gets horns.
Yeah.
So it's over there for you too.
I think it's well, you noticed that when I lamped in the Willy Wonka commentary, but yeah, I think it's part of, you know, in a lot of European countries.
In that case, Jova, you can always revert back to European logic if it helps.
Well, I mean, given that the Gollum given that the Gollum game may or may not confirm that orcs can have partners, yeah, maybe.
It's weird because I can tell you already, I saw the story of Gollum, and without spoiling too much, it still tries to fit in with what is established also in the Jackson movies. It's just a matter of the different aesthetics doesn't make it match with the ones of the trilogy. But again, you'll be able to see eventually, Jova.
I was gonna ask, would it spoil to mention what specific detail from the Jacksonverse they apparently took into
particularly the final cutscene, which I don't even know if Pedro even has a right to that yet by the recording, so for the sake of everyone, I'm just not gonna tell.
Fair enough.
Not yet.
Still, though, I mean, well, again, as far as the marketing and stuff
I can tell you...
It was,
Sorry.
As far as the marketing went, it was supposed to be Tolkienverse, so...
Yeah, it's the Tolkienverse, yeah.
I can use this time, Jova, to tell you, since we're probably not gonna have too much when the actual game rolls around, to tell you that I'm more familiar with the company actually who published the game.
Daedalic. Yeah.
It's a German company that mostly did publish point-and-click
Deponia.
games, which actually, particularly Deponia, which is supposed to be a love letter, using a lot of quotation in that, to Monkey Island. Mostly because I don't know if you actually played those much.
I actually recently bought them on Steam to try them out.
I recommend you to play because as point-and-click games, they're perfectly the kind of experience that you have similar to Monkey Island. So they're not as dickish as the Sierra one. You know, you can potentially be stuck with moon logic, but you know, you eventually can figure out how things go.
So what's the problem?
Thing is that, you know how in Monkey Island, Guybrush is portrayed as not particularly a good person, but occasionally do something potentially mean-spirited, like closing stand in a coffin?
Yes.
They kind of decided to ramp up a bit that factor with the protagonist of Deponia, making me very, very unlikable. By the time of the third game, almost the interest of the cast, and probably extension of the player, hate him. And yet they tried to pull something of, I'm actually still really a good guy because I'm sacrificing myself for the greater good kind of moral, and it's rough. I'll eventually record the games since I actually, grew up with those, eventually during my early Steam years, just for the sake of it. But let me just say this, Jova, it's a very good attempt, and the art style, and the mechanics are very good.
Yeah, because I really like the way the game looks, actually.
I wish they had a better story. That's all.
It's interesting because
Fun fact, Pedro, it also has the same premise as Astro Boy. You know, rich,
really?
elitist people who live in tranquility over the top in a in a construction building full surrounding the air, while the rest of the planet is filled with junk and the people who cannot afford that.
Interesting, but no, that's the thing. Like the reason I got it is because it was point-and-click adventure games, and because I love the hand-drawn visuals. They look great.
I also played another game overall, which is still another point-and-click, which is more about, a set of scientists trying to prevent the end of the world. I forgot exactly what it's called. But my point to that is to explain. They're not a bad publisher in themselves. The problem, as you will see, the problem with the Gollum game was that it was too ambitious and something completely different from what the company was used to do. Meaning that despite whatever budget and whatever time, because the game was super delayed multiple times, that they had, it probably was not going to be, it ended up, in a good state. I'll elaborate more actually when we get to that because, I have my fair share of things to say on all kinds of levels when it comes to that. But it was just to put in context the people behind that.
See, the thing is, like, the way the Deponia games look, that's kind of how I wanted the new Monkey Island game to look like. I
get what you mean. Don't worry.
Because don't get me wrong. It's not. I get what they were going for, the art style for the new one. It's just that I don't know. I don't know. It doesn't properly reflect how the old games looked. Let
me put it this way. Much like with a lot of stuff involved in a series, Ron Gilbert took a decision, and then because of his ego, he really probably, decided that it was only the best idea, and things snowballed because it attracted a lot of people who harassed him in return.
Brilliant.
Okay,
don't worry, I'm not saying that it's his fault because harassing is still, a worse problem that people really should not do. But unfortunately, a lot of actually, normal criticism actually, got ignored on, along the way because of that.
Yeah, like, harassment's bad, but I'm not gonna lie, I did not like that ending. I'm sorry, like...
Well, I was talking more about the art style, like Pedro said. It's more of a case of,
it's
more of a case of Ron Gilbert being, a very ingenious person in what he does, but again, when it comes to making his decision, it's basically his way or the highway. It's very drastic in what he does. Again, compared to when it comes to the people who work on the original Monkey Island, Tim Schafer actually was much more flexible in what he did. So there is that. I haven't seen the game that Ron Gilbert did for Sega. It is called like The Cave, I think. So I don't know actually how that plays out, but I heard it's actually not that bad.
I will say this, like, bringing it back to Daedalic. Yeah, I've heard that Daedalic were pretty prolific in Europe. So, while they may not have been the best known worldwide, they were apparently a big deal in Europe.
Yes.
To the point where it was an outright shock that the Golden game was as bad as it was.
Like I said, Jova, I played the Deponia trilogy plus that other point-and-click way before, the game was announced, and unfortunately, unlike a lot of people on the internet, I actually did follow the game's development and launch instead of having the Pikachu shock surprise phase during these last, months or 1 year roughly of development.
For those in the audience who don't know, the Gollum game is one of those rare pieces of crap that has the honor of saying that it's a studio killer. Like, granted, Daedalic are now in a publishing-only model, but as far as development goes, they're dead. That game killed them.
I can tell you that with the fourth game, Deponia basically has also its story concluded, so it's not really a case of there's stuff unfinished on that front.
The thing about the Gollum game is that I can definitely tell that it's their first rodeo at this, because
and their last, I guess,
because they didn't really do their proper homework. Because a lot of times when you're trying to do the platforming in Gollum, the camera. The camera, like, there's no such thing as a dynamic camera in this game. Like, a lot of times in order to look where you're supposed to jump next, you have to basically turn the camera around in 360 degrees to look for where the next platform is. Whereas in something like an Uncharted, the camera will often switch automatically to tell you where you're supposed to go next. But in Gollum, there's a lot of, you have to basically look for the platforms yourself. A lot of times, because a lot of times they're not immediately obvious, so you'll have to basically move the camera around to see where where's the next platform.
Alright, we're almost done with these guys. I think I just need to fit either one more after this, and then we deal with the mastermind that is being behind all of these, you know, particular tribes.
Oh boy, who could it be?
It's not really too much of a payoff, but I kind of still like the idea and conception of the kind of story arc that they've been building for this side mission. Again, much like with the other things tied to this DLC, you can tell that the budget was not as much as the one of the main game, but they still tried to build something with it and experiment a bit with the mechanics to, you know, provide a different kind of challenge, similar to what the DLCs of the first game were, but also trying to go a bit more the distance, you know, with that.
The mastermind is actually you, the player.
That
Of
would
course.
be interesting, I guess. Yes, Drova?
Yeah, that sounds very off, but yeah, no, I'll admit, a part of me is kind of sickly interested to see the Golem game because, again, it's not every day you get a game that kills a studio. Like, let me put it like this: the Golem game, there was definitely some talk about it, and when we actually do commentate on that, I'll talk more about how much people really did want a Golem game. But to be fair, it was tied to Lord of the Rings. That in and of itself was going to get an interest. But I think what I felt about Golem was like, sure, it seemed like a game of interest, but it didn't seem like it was going to be like a big title of big fame or infamy. Like, it seemed like it was just going to be another game release, like, and you know, for good reason.
What the Moria game is supposed to actually be by the time we're recording this.
I could not have imagined just how infamous that game would turn out to be. Like, it is now considered a contender for worst game of 2023, only potentially being beaten by that god-awful looking King Kong game.
Well, okay, I can tell you this. There are two ways to measure onto that front, but each of them, you know, still are bad in their own right, more in a sense of the Kingdom game was literally rushed out of a window. We do have confirmation that development took place in only a very few scattered months. While instead the Golem game had multiple delays, some of them really long, you know, and the Miyamoto quote cannot really save you from that one.
That's right, I think we now have a Matt McMuscle's What Happened video on the Golem.
Yes, we do.
When it comes to capitalizing, you know, on stuff like that, I get the idea, you know, it's too much, enough of a given that a video like that will happen.
Oh, no, like, usually when a What Happened video comes out, that's a sign that there's enough info to tell pretty much
I did not
what
question
went
the
wrong.
quality, Drova, just, you know, the timing.
I don't know.
Well, it's not like this is the first time he does this. Like, usually...
Yeah, like I said, I wasn't particularly keen when that happens also to Bala Wonderworld. Like, there is a reason to do it, sure, but I think a more, you know, tepid and, you know, slightly distance, you know, the time would have probably sufficed better.
I'm gonna give him a bit of a pass because of how cruel the YouTube algorithm system is to content creators these days, so I can get wanting to capitalize so that the YouTube algorithm will favor the...
I mean,
Now, granted, there are some...
I don't really see much of a difference between doing it sooner than later. I mean, what exactly...
It gives the feeling that you're just wanting to capitalize rather than, you know, wanting
Well,
to have genuine interest in the covering the thing.
I guess, but...
I'm willing to give Matt the benefit of the doubt that it's pretty much both for him. Like, he does seem to genuinely take the job seriously overall.
I mean, it's like...
Oh, like I said, I did not question the
Sure.
quality.
I think, I mean, it's one of those things where it's just like, I mean, I feel like if we're going to go into that debate, we might as well try to say, oh, you're never allowed to cover something right after it comes out. I don't know. I don't really see the basic. Okay, what's the limit exactly? Like how far do we have to wait?
The format of the show, for starters, Matt usually covers games that have gone down, you know, in history of being potentially studio killers. So you would expect that to cover more stuff, you know, that have been properly talked about enough, and you know that time passed to actually being defined for how they've been, you know, killing the studio and everything. But as we've seen more recently, for different reasons that are worse, Balan didn't kill Azrest.
No, it didn't, but it killed Yujinaka's career.
I mean, I argue he himself committed Sudoku, but...
well, also, it did kill the Balan team.
My point being, it's not technically bad, but I rather prefer to just, you know, to
Sure.
wait and see what happens.
I mean, I feel like an argument that makes more sense to me.
The only case I can see is, you know, if your review show is specialized on trying to be on the spot and cover things as they come out, you know, in order to try to, you know, give a more direct first impression kind of coverage. And to be fair, Matt has a set of videos that tend to do that potentially, just to see new releases, you know, how they cool enough. But stuff like that, you know, when it comes to properly what happened, you know, is usually takes things in being ovened enough. Mostly also because even more information crop up at that point. Again, like you said, you didn't really need a full battle overworld, yeah. But overworld technically, you know.
See, the thing is,
only a problem on that, but go on.
I can actually find a reason that fits better, that I will argue I can agree better, which is something like what we're going to, when we eventually have our redo of Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric, which now that we have full knowledge of the development of that game, we can properly analyze the game better and how this came to be. Whereas in the original playthrough, we did it right after it came out. So.
No. Although to our credit, yeah, we're more of a fledgling, newer content creator. So again, I will give credit that there is some merit, especially with, again, how the YouTube algorithm works, especially if you want to be successful on the platform, to do what's big at the time. Though, again,
Joe has a point. The algorithm doesn't give creators much choice to, sadly.
Yeah, like, and again, further on, with Matt, I've never gotten the idea that he is, like, you know, stuck to the format of, oh, I have to wait this amount of time before something comes out, because some days he'll do something that's relatively new or recent, other times he'll do something that's pretty old or whatnot. Like, I feel like, if anything, I like to imagine that he will often wait until he has enough information to make a solid case for why a game turned out this way, and then, you know, overall a good time. Like, so I'll give him credit. I feel like he timed things just fine with Balan Wonderworld and the Golem game in regards to giving the info. In fact, he actually revealed some stuff about the Golem game that we didn't know prior before, like the fact that an AI was used to help design levels in that game.
Not just that. The infamous written apology, apparently was also written with an AI, which is all kind of hilarious, because how lazy can you be to do that?
Well, I was actually talking about Balan Wonderworld when I talked about AI being used for the level design in that game. But yes, yeah, that's a good point about Golem, that they used AI to make the code, and yeah, an AI to make the apology, which blatantly got the grammar wrong. Holy cow.
Alright, I think we're about to get the last piece of equipment.
I have no tribe. That is why I can best our elven enemies, consigning warrior and weapons alike to the mud of Mordor.
Boy, they're really hyping this guy up, aren't they?
Like I said, the reveal is not, you know, super spectacular, but, you know, still cute enough for what they wanted to do.
I call on all orcs to throw off their masters and their petty allegiances and storm all Middle-earth as one.
Basically, this guy seems to have the right idea that the orcs are too divided, so he wants to actually unite them, Nobunaga style. So he's called the Lawless, appropriately. And then now that's where we need to actually find him out.
But yeah, like I was saying, the Golem game is already a piece of gaming history in the worst way possible, and like, when you are to that point already, that is never a good sign.
The gimmick is that he has no tribal allegiance, and he wants to showcase the fact that orcs can be, you know, work independently as a single, you know, kind of mind tied, free of sorrow and everything.
And yet we're trying to kill this guy. Why?
Because otherwise he will rile up too much the orcs, and we cannot allow that.
Isn't that ironic?
Remember, Jova, the orcs are not nice, so they need to be exterminated.
And look at that, I'm literally just... The Lawless, everyone! Free stealthies and I'm done.
All that build up with that voice dialogue.
Mostly because I've been diligent and upgraded my weapon, so I was already overpowered.
Though you think that for someone like that, they maybe scale him up.
Like I said, it's a nice gesture what they did. I can see the progression, but I really wish it was someone more, important or powerful.
For me, it's one of those. To go back to the Golem game, for me, it's one of those things where it's just like when I first saw that bit in the lore campaign, I was like, okay, I get that this franchise is about deepest lore, man, but does anybody actually want to see how orcs procreate?
I think that's up there with J.K. Rowling revealing that wizards used to poop on the floors of Hogwarts and magic it away.
You have to also remember there are different things. I don't even remember if that information is supposed to be canon, completely canon or not. But my point is, for most of people's knowledge, orcs are created in vats. We see something similar when Urukais are created in Isengard when it comes to. Fellowship of the Ring, we see more the creation of lures. So the vast majority of casual people who are not super into the franchise but they still enjoy it get the idea that orcs are basically sort of artificially made. But the Silmarillion does explain that the orcs were basically elves who were captured by Morgoth, tortured, and eventually mutated. So functionally, they will still have to, potentially work organically. But that's not the topic for now. Now it's time to reprise the story with the potential next recruit you can get, a digger.
Oh, really?
Neat.
Just get a shovel. I'll dig.
Dun, 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 dun.
Come to kill everything in Mordor, have you? Good. Everything moving around up here makes an horrible racket down below.
Down below?
You should see it under there, my sharp-eared friend. Beautiful. At least it was. Until that lunatic started building.
This also introduces the only one major choice that you get between when it comes to these recruiting missions. The Da Vinci guy wants to still build these projects and everything, but this guy, the excavator, believes that this guy is disturbing his territory. So you have to choose: do you want to keep the builder or you want the digger instead? And in fact, to be honest, like any one of them could work just fine, but I already recruited this guy anyway, so let's just side with him.
Unlike that shovel twirling layabout, an elf can appreciate my vision of a gloriously constructed king.
Madness! The underfolk will punish.
And that means you have to kill the one you don't side with. So yeah, not the most pleasant times. Go on, Drover.
I will say, for this DLC, I find it weird that the main antagonist, I assume the Nazgul
the Nazgul twin...
they surprise him? Oh, so they're sisters?
You'll see.
Well, I will say, it's weird that we haven't gotten much presence from them this whole DLC. Like, this is the last part of the
they were the ones who actually... Remember, after we conquered... essentially, we recruited all these people. We were told that we need to actually conquer Gorgoroth again because they captured that again. Talion apparently in this DLC kind of sucks because he loses the fortress's controls off screen for some reason.
I get that they need to give something for this character to do, but maybe you don't need to mitigate Talion's efforts like that unless
I get the idea it might be a symbolic kind of thing to represent the fact that he's losing control potentially. So maybe that's what they were going for.
Oh, well, that's going into the art collection, I guess.
So yeah, this could have gone potentially better, but alas, you work with what you have, which means now you have the last. The technical battle that you can do. Again, the siege for Gorgoroth.
There will be no turning back after this.
There never was.
Also, don't
Give
worry,
you
Talion.
salt.
Talion will also participate in this as an NPC, so basically everyone is here.
You stand before walls you could not defend and will not breach. You face the army we have assembled to dominate all of Mordor.
I'm sure you'll do oh so well where others fail.
And yeah, their basically weapon of choice is not a kunai, but a sickle with chain.
Just Mordor. Wow, your ambition is just floors me.
We will hack the wings from your fingers.
Just like you did to Sauron.
Now, just like Sauron did to you.
It won't make a difference.
There they are. I just said, just Mordor.
Alright, like I said, the cool thing is that every single captain that you recruited alongside the campaign will participate in this fight. So, and you get small moments that will involve them, you know, helping you throughout the way. So again, that's pretty cool. But again, this has to be treated still as a full siege, which means you have to capture the control points one by one. Also, after you can catch the first control point, this happens.
You turn around and march your army out now, or I kill your mate here.
Got one word for you, maggot.
No! Oh, snap!
Again, I did not particularly humor of the twins, but I genuinely like this moment. It comes out of nowhere and it catches you off guard because it's scripted to happen if you recruited them.
That was very courageous.
This is also a good moment for me to mention. After you complete this DLC, as a reward, you can import in the main game, vanilla game, all these captains that you have recruited as captains for Talion. And after that, they basically get integrated properly in the Nemesis system, starting as your recruit, but we still have their personality from this DLC. And if by any kind of reason they betray you, it gets even saltier. For example, the surviving twin will have survival's guilt because he doesn't feel, you know, the same without his other twin, you know. Or the bow Morgoth, you know, the sniper guy with the crossbow, you know, potentially, you know, feels inadequate as well. Again, they kind of build up. I didn't really show it because, you know, it probably will take too long. It's not too much to showcase. But you also get a nice reward for the main game completing this, you know, if you want to still roam around properly on your own. That's pretty cool. And at this point, thanks to all the bonus of equipment, as you can see, it's complete light chaos, because every move that I do can potentially irradiate everyone around me. You've seen also in some of the previous fights. Alright. Second point. Actually, that's third. Yeah, the only thing is that you cannot actually draw out your bodyguard because you're already, you know, participating in the fight on his own.
Searing ecstasy.
Hey, buddy.
Yeah.
I'm not your buddy, guys.
Yeah, I love those kind of deaths. I'm gonna kill you.
It's gonna kill you.
Mm-hmm.
It really depends, Dweebs, because sometimes this happens because the captains are not immune to immediate execution, which is technically a very rare kind of trait, but it is possible that it can happen. So it's pretty cool.
Although in the case of this game too, the beat them bit is actually one that properly applies to most of what you do in this game. So.
Basically.
Remind me, is friendly fire possible in this game?
Don't worry. Also, okay, it can only for your melee attack. If you want to deliberately hit orcs that are under, you know, your allegiance, potentially, yes, that can happen. But you really have to try to actually make a dent on that front. Also, that contraption that you see under near the gate is something that was talked about during the development of the game, because it was showcased in the tech demo. That is one of the defense of the fortress, and it's basically a caged dragon that will actually spew fire to every kind of captain that an orc that actually gets around the gate. So the best course of action that you can do, there you go, is to actually, you know, jump around the gate and actually free him in order to you know, remove that obstacle and inflict extra damage also to the fortress, you know, siders. Ow. First of all, I need to defeat these guys, if I remember correctly. Oh, there you go.
Oh no, he died from...
Also, no, I don't know where the music went.
The musicians were so enthralled by what's happening.
The orchestra fell asleep, I guess.
God damn it.
Don't you just hate it when that happens?
Yeah, I know, you're just doing your music and it just stops.
In case you're wondering, yes, also, due to the nature of the game, it's possible that the captains you recruited can also potentially be killed if you actually don't heal them up after they're being downed in this fight. But once again, you have to try very hard to actually have that happen, even on higher difficulties. Alright, one last point and we're good to actually enter to confront the Nazgul. There we go.
Right. Just one more war chief to defeat and then we're good to
go.
Oh
no, well yeah, I guess, yes, I'm gonna defeat him, but there you go. It's actually Tinder that kills him. Cool. Alright, time to actually confront the sisters, and unlike in the Barnor DLC, you will have to do this alone. Talion will actually not help you on this one. To be fair, the fight is still, as you will be able to see, the fight is still properly, you know, balanced, so it's perfectly doable on your own.
You have come far, Elf. We thank you for bringing us the ring.
Ah, plot twist. I switched the ring. Oh crap!
Lucky it's my bullshit ring.
Wait a minute. Shit! One of my orc friends switched the ring, thinking that I had the real one, and he was switching it with a fake one, but now I've got the real one again. Shit!
Alright, here's how the fight works. Your light attacks are basically the key to win this fight. Occasionally, the Nazgul will use their sickle with chain to actually bind you onto the ground, and you need to use the cone of light in order to actually, you know, free, you know, like this. You have to actually free yourself from that, otherwise you will be basically a stationary target. Otherwise, they don't attack you too much, you know, thankfully, and basically you can easily stun them with your light attacks, you know. Go. Okay, the animation was a bit janky, but sure. Yeah, occasionally we also repel you if you actually gank up too much on them. But again, it's best also to, again, divide and conquer, you know, separate the two sisters and try to take out one as soon as possible. Particularly, this one is actually more recommended in other difficulties because, you know, facing two of them, you know, both of them at the same time nearby is actually not recommended.
I imagine.
There you go. One down, one to go. Oh shit.
Just shine your flashlight on it.
Yeah. Sure, whatever you say. I actually forgot who are they voiced by, but the credits of Anime and the game credit both of them because, you know, those were the credits basically done, updated after the DLCs were released, meaning that they credited properly everyone.
Trying to strike a nerve there.
Remember, the Nazguls are all about also mind games trying to destabilize you to make you fall into despair. So... Well, again, these two actually behaved a bit differently than the rest, but... Oh, shit. Well, this one is actually... Since the last one is vulnerable, it's time to learn about them. Alright, it turns out these two were twins working for the Kingdom of Khand, which managed to kill the two Nazguls and steal their rings.
The rings will possess you.
Shut up.
Basically. Then returned home. Again, the Kingdom of Khand is not to talk too much in the games, but it's basically the equivalent of, you know, China.
Yeah.
Why do these flashbacks always look like some bits are gonna fly off the people?
It's to represent that they're selling the past whips. I rather have that than the Vaseline effect.
We honor you, Father.
It seems you honor yourselves. The rings.
We lost them.
Actually, we cannot pull that excuse, but remember, the rings have a tendency of, you know, make people fall into power.
Why did you put the rings on?
Which means it's time for Daddy Dearest to go. In a very gruesome manner.
They killed the king! Kill them both!
Like that. You don't really see, but then, decapitation like that is... Until they managed to collect loot and decay, and Unfed Sauron came back to, you know, to recruit the two newly formed Nazguls. How sad. So, all's well that ends well, right?
Well, hold on. We gotta wonder why Elthariel's not around by the time of the Elthariel.
You really need to improve naming, Jova.
Steady, Ranger.
My time has come.
And so have I.
Take me home to Gondor.
Take the ring, now. You will not get another chance.
Please. Don't let me die in this cursed land.
Unfortunately, he will, but he just doesn't know yet.
The irony.
So, we're finally back also to Minas Morgul.
Where then, I guess, she'll take the ring.
Yeah, basically to let Talion die, quote unquote.
The ring.
Please. Say please, Elthariel.
I know, right?
When the time came, you would do what is needed. Give me the ring.
But you're about to hear some similar phrases to what we heard in the movie, believe it or not.
Oh.
No. Something more similar to what Boromir said.
Of course. Such a little thing. Why should I give it up?
Fuck.
Well,
Do not
shoot.
betray the man you were.
You speak to me of betrayal.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, that is kind of rich coming from
Again,
you.
Elthariel wanted to actually pray in his humanity, but instead struck the worst possible chord.
You took everything from me.
Treat you like a princess and now you betrayed.
Oh god, Tommy Wiseau as a Nazgul.
I mean, he kinda has already the physique.
How is your sex life?
That might be more terrifying than anything else a Nazgul has asked. Oh dear. So he's the first boss, and he's also our final boss.
Talion is not here right now. Please leave a message after the beep. Beep? So yeah, like you said, like you guessed, Talion is also the final boss.
That's a
fair
nice
enough.
touch.
It's technically a repeat of the first fight, just slightly more complex and a bunch of works on a more open space. So there is
I guess that explains why the twin Nazgul sisters didn't have as much a presence, since they weren't in actuality.
Still an arc villain of
final.
sort, but they were there basically to provide conflict until this point.
Witness the might of the Galadrim.
Is now really the time to be flexing, sister?
Yes, she is to represent how great the light is. Again, that's part of the charm to me still of also these characters, which do reflect a bit what the Tolkien books also said in by extension of the Jackson movies. You know, the idea that the three races of Middle Earth, the three species of Middle Earth, you know, are still composed by very, very flawed people, no matter how high and mighty they feel like. But they can still do something good about it, no matter what. Just because the threat of Sauron is just that big, that threatens everyone else.
When you think about it, the threat of Sauron brings out simultaneously the worst, but also the best in people.
Again, and I can tell you this because having read the Silmarillion, I can tell you, it's not even a case of, oh, it was secretly a test from Ilúvatar to see how the creations will actually fare. Not really, because the creation of evil in the world in the Silmarillion is kind of sort of an accident when you get down to it.
Is it like with Samurai Jack, where it's like this evil bolt then zapped the tree, which became a coup?
Not really, because in that case it existed beforehand. It's not even similar to the Chronicles of Narnia, where evil existed and someone else accidentally imported it onto the place. It's more of a case of Eru Ilúvatar, as in capital G God, had his children, the Maiar, which basically are his archangels, and they literally sing the word into the existence. Tolkien is, as many people will tell you, Tolkien is good at describing stuff. And he mentioned the entire beginning of Silmarillion is about the world coming to existence, bit by bit, just thanks to the melody that everyone is singing. But Melkor, aka Morgoth, basically the Lightbringer equivalent, thought that he could actually do something on his own, and as such, disrupted the dissonance, and that created evil. And that was basically spiraling down. But more on that another time.
May you gain some freedom in death.
Yeah, that won't be really enough.
I am banished from death.
So yeah, as you can imagine, this is basically right before he gets fully corrupted. This is also very... And yes, we get to see his family being killed again.
My family is dead!
I still get it, it's still tragic and everything, but it doesn't change what he said in the first game. It's still very manipulative, I'm sorry.
The problem was we never really got to know his family that
and because of that, Jova, you definitely tell that it's more of a narrative manipulation to make you feel sorry for him when they could have easily done anything else that would have been better.
Like, let's remember, for as much as he talks about his family, when we do see him in the afterlife, I don't think it's him reuniting with his family.
This
it's
is what
just
I mean.
him
The final
shedding the armor and all
needed
that.
his wife and kid to actually be present.
It's basically...
We were wrong on that.
And he exploded.
However,
well, we know he'll be back, though.
However, Galadriel says that she believes that with this, it's finally time for Elthariel to come home. It will be fine.
No, it isn't.
How much you want to bet
chooses to remain, which means that for 60 years, for also the events of the War of the Rings, she was roaming around in Mordor, which begs the question, why did she not help the Frodo Sam?
Yeah, I was about to say, hey, girl, we could have used her help.
Was she too far away from the events to understand what was going on? It's wonky, mostly because we kind of needed these. If you remember, when the One Ring got destroyed and Sauron died,
she witnessed the fall of Barad-dûr.
She was over there on the mountain corner.
Celebrimbor managed to escape far in the east, and she was there to witness that.
How convenient!
Nice. Oh, sounds like I missed an awful lot of fun.
Yeah, you missed out on a whole war.
And because Celebrimbor Ring is still present, that means Celebrimbor's spirit is still alive, and that's our sequel bait. Elthariel will travel to the east to find Celebrimbor.
I can't wait to see what becomes of that in the next game.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, it's an interesting thought, but without actual pre-planning, this kind of falls a bit flat.
Also, I'm sorry, but what is this implying? That Celebrimbor is still going to do some evil stuff? And
potentially, because you theorize during your final thoughts about the 60-year being trapped in the eye, mellowing out. I kind of get the idea that it made him even more pissed.
Like, at that point, though, what's he gonna do? Sauron's gone. There's no one to really wage war on at that point.
Potentially him being the real, the major next villain. I don't know. But anyway, some quick thoughts on this DLC before we end off, Libs.
I thought it was a fine story. I think it's a lot better than the story of the last game, which was just basically
Talion's family is dead.
Anyway, it was just basically just a generic grimdark story with Lord of the Rings stuff just slapped onto it. This actually felt more like Lord of the Rings to me, in that it wasn't. It's not so happy-go-lucky that it's a farce, but nor is it so grimdark that it's not fun. It's more of a happy balance between the two.
I was asking more specifically about this DLC, Luis, because you mentioned that for the vanilla game.
Well, I still think it's kind of like that.
Okay, then.
The ending is. I get what they're going for, and well, if they ever make another one of these games, I'll be interested to see how it goes. But it's been like 7 years since then, and we haven't really heard much of anything.
And the developers are right now busy with Wonder Woman. So.
Once again, we're recording. This part will be published, believe it or not, near Christmas. So the Game Awards will have been come and gone by that point. So we do not know if the game shows up in that or nearby because of maybe another event or separate the trailer.
I can't wait for Middle-earth Shadow of Shadows.
Of the East, maybe. Even though that sounds a bit of, World War II anti-Japanese propaganda, so maybe...
Yeah, maybe not call it that.
I don't know.
It's fine. It's not great, but, it's... I can still at least recognise it as being part of the same universe. Just, well, a lot more stabby and more mind control and probably the most some of the more PG deaths I've seen in this in Fiction, where you explode in lights.
Yeah, so because you're irradiated.
Yeah, it's like that. It's like a plot point in Final Fantasy 14 where there's too much light makes you explode. Except like 4 or 5 years early.
Also, it kind of reminds me, Libs, instead of how over the years they actually integrated the idea of a live stream, the concept of a live stream of 597 into the gameplay to justify the idea of why monsters and bosses vanish instead of leaving a corpse behind.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah, you just go back into some weird watery thing. How lovely.
Alright, Jova, what about you?
This DLC, I think, is a good addition overall, but it has some issues. Like, okay, in regards to our protagonist of this DLC, Elthariel,
Nope. Elthariel Trooper.
Sorry, Elthariel. I don't know, is it just me, like, okay, granted, this is sort of an issue I have with the main story as well, but I feel like her character went from being good and supportive to oddly arrogant with the Celebrimbor stuff, and I feel like that kind of carries over into the DLC. I get it, it's an elf's nature, but she didn't feel like she was particularly like that all the time, and she is weirdly standoffish, considering that a lot of this stuff is kind of her fault when you get down to it. Oof. As for her arc in this game, I guess she learned some humility. Like, okay, to compare and contrast this to, say, you know, Talion or Baranor, with their campaigns, I felt that there was a clear message and transition with their characters. Baranor learned to, you know, take life a bit more easily, especially when he got his brother back and essentially have hope for the future. Talion went from being somebody who just wanted none of the action to eventually being the person who would take the burden. Whereas, yes, Elthariel does learn to accept her fate, I guess. I guess for me, maybe it's because her campaign feels shorter story-wise in the grand scheme of things, but I don't feel like A necessarily connected to B the best in returns to how she went from, I want to go home, to, no, I want to stay and fight. Like, now, it was nice that she does eventually remember her respect for Talion. That's good. But then there's some weird spots here and there, like, okay, so she went from not trusting Talion to now trusting him, and I guess she respects him, and you think that she'd be done with stuff, but then when Celebrimbor escapes, she's like, I will follow his call, and maybe it's just the acting, but the tone of voice is unclear on whether or not she's going to try and prevent disaster, or she still is with the program on Celebrimbor, which I feel would defeat the whole purpose.
No, she just needs to find him to see what's up, because, you know, leaving him unchecked might not be a good idea.
Fair point. Though that makes you wonder, if she had just destroyed that ring, would that have also gotten rid of Celebrimbor?
Yes. Because it has the same effect of the One Ring of Sauron, you know, life essence connected to that.
Which makes me wonder, why doesn't she just do that? Like, I mean, granted, that's
lots of speculation, but it's really just left up to interpretation.
I guess I just find it weird because for whatever issues I had with other plots in this series, I didn't feel like they were as, I guess I have to say, a bit incomplete. Like, not too incomplete. Like, it does have a start, middle, and end, but it feels like a lot more stuff is missing here than in the other campaigns. Like, granted,
okay. I cannot tell you if the developers ran one of those internet polls and said, which character do you want to see more in a DLC? Especially because with this one, Elthariel, it really does feel like some of the questions in the vanilla games were left to be answered specifically in the DLC, like what happened to her and what happened to the ring, because otherwise they're not really told in any capacity.
I'm willing to believe that her DLC was always planned because, you know, and to be fair, all the DLC makes sense. Like, Baranor and Elthariel were companions of Talion, so it makes sense that she would get a DLC campaign. I just wish that it could have been better fleshed out, especially since, you know, the character's touted as the main antagonist until we find out that Talion's the main final boss. The Nazgul twin sisters, I mean, they only get one flashback. Granted, I guess with the other Nazgul that was kind of the case, but
yeah,
it felt like there was more
than just one flashback.
Yeah, although it felt like with the other Nazgul, there was at least still more building to them, with them having more presence when we dealt with each one. The sisters here, they show up for a cutscene saying, oh, we're gonna be in charge now. And then later on, you take down their fortress and take them out. And they're done. Now again, I'm probably making this sound like this is way worse than it actually is, because no, I do think it's overall good, but I hesitate to say that it's, like, you know, properly complete. Mm-hmm. Like, now at its base, it's got a good, unique gameplay style that, again, does the Sonic Free and Knuckles thing of sort of taking cues from the original gameplay, but adding its own good spin on it. And the characters. Okay, the custom orcs are pretty great characters in their own right. Like, I'll admit some designs do have me raising eyebrows, but overall, I'm fine with giving more characterization to the orcs. Especially since this also plays into the customization in that these ones are actually set as that. Even if the big bad orc who, you build up to can potentially be taken out in a matter of seconds if you do the right prep work. But I digress. I guess, at the very least, the Nazgul twins managed to give more of a climatic fight in that regard. I do wish we'd just gotten more of them. Like, I feel like that's the thing with this DLC. Where, okay, you could argue there's technically a lot to it gameplay-wise, so it'll keep you occupied, but I do feel story-wise it could have used more to overall feel complete. And yeah, the sequel hook so far not leading to stuff probably may not have been the best idea. But I digress. It is what it is. It's a DLC campaign.
Alright, Pedro.
I guess I don't have much to add to what Jova just said, really. It does feel, the sequel hook makes it kind of feel unsatisfying by the end. I feel like they probably should have just played it safe and have a conclusive ending just in case, as, now it's definitely should have, considering how we know that they never got to make a third game of this. So, yeah. I did find interesting how she just conveniently missed an entire war. So that's kind of funny.
I know, right? Like, oh yes, I was here. And
she's literally.
It's not like.
Oh god, I just realized, Jova, this is literally the Lord of the Rings equivalent of that meme of the guy who just enters a room and the entire room is on fire with people, throwing shit. You know the one, right?
I think it's from Community.
Yeah. This is literally
characters coming in pizza.
Yeah, this is literally that Community meme, but in Middle Earth. That's basically what this is.
I mean, again, okay, granted, I know that these two games have done a bit of inserting, oh, this character was here, and heck, even Talion had a bit of that, but at least Talion made sense. He was a Nazgul, essentially, so we wouldn't have known. That said, this elf here, you're telling me that she decided to stay around to help in the fight, and then proceeded to pretty much do nothing to actually help with the Sauron stuff when you get down to it, unless she was off in the corner shooting arrows all the time.
I guess the best you can guess is that she made sure that Mordor will not be completely, fully 100% organized for the war effort.
I guess if it was...
Not all of the forces would have been able to invade Middle-earth, not just only in the same capacity as Talion, but some it's still wonky.
Yeah.
I think a better thing to do would have maybe have Galadriel go, okay, well then, here are these set of instructions on what you need to do, and maybe they could have...
You will think when the Fellowship arrives in Lothlorien, Galadriel will say, by the way, I have a sleeper agent in Mordor that can help you if you get there.
Pretty much. It's like, yeah, I have legit one of the best elf archers, no offense, Legolas, who can probably help you because she knows this place like the back of her hand now at this point.
Little did you know, Jova, I was that character that was right there in the background all along.
When you get down to it, okay, even if we ignore the retcons with Shelob, and assume that she was still just trying to eat our protagonist, Shelob arguably did more to help than Elthariel, despite her insistence that she'll do this or that.
Be thankful, Jova, I'm not making a counter about every time you fuck up the name.
Yeah, that name's a bit hard for me to remember the exact
just
pronunciation.
Like
yeah, normally I don't raise too much an eyebrow to characters who were there all along. Heck, sometimes it actually can be done well. Not so much with this elf, though, I'm sorry.
Anyway, anything else, Pedro?
Not particularly. It looks alright, I guess, for what it is.
Alright, let me conclude then. I still enjoy this DLC, but compared to the Baranor one, you can tell there's not much in this one. They still try to spice things up in order to make things interesting, and I commend that, ultimately. And it's still an enjoyable run through it. But you can tell that this one has more cracks to show, sadly. So that only leaves to what the future will entail if Warner will ever decide to this story, whatever is we are Monolith or so. But otherwise, what Jova said pretty much applies to the story and everything. However, here's the thing: there is one character we haven't really talked that much during the story because he showed up for this game, like he said, only near the beginning, and then he just disappears from the plot until they need to catch up with the events of Return of the King. But those shucks, part of me really wants to wonder what was he doing between the time he was captured at Barad-dûr, extracted the information of the Shire Middle Baggins, and when he eventually, reaches the Fellowship in the Mines of Moria. If only there was a product that would actually tell this kind of story.
I wonder.
Yes, one can hope. See you eventually, everyone.
See ya.
That's